Hello and welcome to this quick and dirty little lens review of the TT Artisan 7.5mm f2 fisheye lens. I received it yesterday and I wanted to just give some quick thoughts while I'm messing around with it, while it's fresh in my mind. And I also wanted to compare it to one of my favorite little lenses, the 7artisan 7.5mm f2. There's a lot of confusion between 7artisan and TT Artisan. They are not the same company. They do not manufacture even in the same warehouses, I believe. They're completely different. There are a number of 7.5mm fisheye lenses for various mirrorless mounts, but to my knowledge, this is the first 7.5mm f2, so it's got a little wider aperture. We'll see how it compares in field of view and sharpness and other aspects. Weight-wise, they're about the same. The TT Artisan might be about 10% heavier, I believe. It's something like 310 grams versus 340 or 50, or maybe it's up to 370. I don't remember off the top of my head, but oh, that's right, 347 grams. That's right there in the box. But I feel that the way that the lens is balanced, it's actually the weight is distributed a little more towards the rear of the lens, so it doesn't pull as much forward. So in actual use, they feel about the same when mounted on a camera. Obviously, it's a little larger, but it's not going to make much of a difference for most use cases. It has a nice clicked, but also still kind of smooth action aperture ring where it's not a loud, heavy click, but there's a distinctive stop at each aperture point. The focus ring is nice. It's got nice brushed metal. I really like the feel of it. But let's move on to some samples, and we can really see how it stacks up versus the 7artisan and how it performs in astrophotography. I just have some basic samples from my backyard, not much to be seen with all the light pollution around here, but you should get a decent idea of how it affects low light performance and corner and edge sharpness for just the maximum astro quality. All right, here we are in Lightroom looking at some samples. I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. A little lightning round. I tend to ramble on with this sort of thing, so I will try to get through this quickly. First thing to note, the field of view on the TT Artisan 7.5 is not as wide as the 7artisan 7.5mm. I'm saying Artisan and also 7 a lot, so if I get those mixed up, I will try to correct it. But the first samples here, we have a quick little minimum focus distance and depth of field test. You'll see that the depth of field on the f2 is just a lot smoother, especially like this busy curtain area. It's just smoothed out much nicer, and you're getting a lot more subject isolation. Here we can see the difference of the field of view. It's not as striking as it looks at first, because I think the distortion is worse on the TT Artisan, where the center is a little bulged in more, which could be desirable if you want to bring your subjects closer without kind of pushing them back into the distance. But for me, I really love getting as much in the frame as possible, so it's kind of disappointing to see that change in field of view. See here, you get a nice level of detail because you're able to shoot at not as high ISOs and even this dim low light. You're getting a nice image out of this lens. This is just a quick, manual focus using focus peaking. So I'm impressed with it for that. Let's look at something like corner sharpness. Nope, wrong image. Need to compare this and this. Here we go. So this is corner sharpness on both lenses wide open. Or sorry, just overall sharpness, both lenses wide open. I'm going to give this edge to the 7artisan lens, the older lens. They're about the same price, so it's reasonable that it would be about the same. I'm not expecting it to blow the other lens out of the water, but it's got ever so slight sharper center image. Now this is f2.8 versus f2, so in that regard, once we stop down the TT Artisan, it is in a more similar comparison. But in other regards, like edge sharpness and chromatic aberration, the TT Artisan wins hands down. You see, just it's a lot more controlled here on the TT Artisan. Edge sharpness, it's about a wash up in certain edges. Maybe might give it, yeah, I'll give it to the TT Artisan for this one. And especially if we jump in and stop down to 2.8, and then we look back at these corners, it's just a lot cleaner. The TT Artisan, just much better. The center of the image at 2.8 improved slightly, but I'm still going to give it to the TT Artisan. But you also notice the field of view change here. It's actually a little zoomed in on the TT Artisan. This table looks a little larger, and you're just not getting quite as much. You can see here, if I show the edge of the frame, this tree, you're only getting about half of it, about that frame, and this looks a little more curved on the TT Artisan, whereas this is ever so slightly straighter, and I'm able to go all the way out, get that extra detail in, which it's worth noting. It's enough to be noteworthy, but I still am enjoying this lens, and I think the colors and the contrast and in a lot of other regards, the TT Artisan lens wins out. Most importantly for astrophotography. So we'll jump now to a quick little low light test. Again, the field of view, you're getting a little more of this light in the edge of frame. This is wide open on both lenses, so we're back to f2.0 for the TT Artisan. But we're going to look at in the center sharpness. I hope I focused properly to infinity. You're getting not great pinpricks of light, but I also have a lot of light pollution around here, so even on very clear nights you don't see much. But you are getting half the ISO, so you are getting, I believe, a full stop of light extra, which makes quite a difference, being able to shoot at either half the shutter speed or half the ISO or whatever you need. And you're getting a little more sharpness at the edges and whatnot. But the biggest issue that the TT Artisan fixes is over in this corner. We have coma. So all of this smearing, these like little Dorito triangle looking things, are not desirable because they will turn your stars into Doritos, which is not what most people want. And if we zoom over here on the TT Artisan, it's just light years above. I mean, pun intended slightly. It is light years better performance. You are almost getting like little starbursts even on f2, which I'm not quite sure how that happens, but I don't believe that's coma. I believe it's just that sharp in the corners with points of light. It does a great job. Up here, you're just like, you're losing pretty much all detail here. There might have been a little bit of wind. It was a 4-second exposure, so there might have been a little bit of wind contributing to that, but I still think that the TT Artisan does a fantastic job with low light performance. We'll just jump through a couple of, oh, I made it black and white. Nope, how did I, okay. If we jump through the aperture range, you won't notice a huge difference. If I jump through, this is starting at f2, going down to, I believe, f5.6. Not a huge difference. Between f5.6 and f2. Let me jump back in here. There is a difference, but it's not super noticeable until you get to the very edges. Like, I would consider these pretty comparable. But if we get down here into the edges, you will notice a fair bit more detail at 5.6. A little bit more in in focus and just better overall. But for the most part, I think you're safe shooting at f2 or f2.8 for pretty much most uses of this lens. You might want to stop it down for absolute maximum sharpness if you are in very broad daylight, but for most uses, I'm just going to keep this lens wide open. And let's just look here, just kind of a messy scene, but we get another example of the pretty good edge performance. I believe this edge might be a little softer than this edge. Pretty similar. The corner, the edges are a lot better than the corners. Definitely, the corners are not the best, but there's not much vignetting. This is at f4. Focus is not on the front of the plane; it's kind of on the ground here. So almost no chromatic aberration. Just a very good lens overall. So it's a pretty budget lens. I like how my my speed round went for 10 minutes here. So I'm gonna give this lens, because I give numerical ratings now, I guess. I'm gonna give it like a 8.7 out of 10. If it had the same field of view as the 7.5, and the same distortion control, it would be a 10 out of 10 for me. The 7.5, sorry, the 7artisan 7.5. The 7artisan 7.5 has been one of my favorite lenses for hiking and just traveling, just to get everything in the frame for wild city photography. And nothing, it almost feels like a rectilinear in some ways in how good it has the distortion control. Whereas the TT Artisan is absolutely a fisheye. You just feel that bulge of the center of the frame coming at you. It's not as well corrected, which is a shame, because every other aspect of this lens I really enjoy. I wish they had absolutely nailed that. It would be a 100% recommendation. But for now, it's a very good if you don't already own a 7.5mm lens, or if you specifically need one for astrophotography. Maybe even if you already own something like the Rokinon 7.5 for astrophotography, and you just want that extra field of view, but with still having great corner and low light performance. So I hope this helped someone. I hope my terrible samples gave you an idea of how the lens works. I just wanted to get this information out there to help people out. So check out this lens if you like it. I don't know, Google it. I don't have like a link to it because I'm really lazy and I don't want to put stuff in the description. So yeah, take care, everybody.